So today, the Miracle Work 3 class, and the topic, gentleness, is great. I like it as one of the characteristics of the teachers of God. So we will read it from the from the manual for teachers. And so gentleness is really connected to, because it's always, connected to something. So this is connected to the idea of giving up, the idea of attack, giving up attack. And that's a great one too. So, some lessons came to me. So for the rest, it's like really beautiful references with the idea of gentleness. I love to read about that. The other part that I would love to read is lesson 23, and maybe we start off with that. And that is the lesson. So do you know it by heart, by any chance? I can leave this world by giving up attack thoughts. Gentleness part of the manual for teachers, like the characteristics of the teachers of God. Gentleness is one of them. And
Good.
it's related to the idea of not attacking. So today we're going to use lesson 23 for that and skim through some of the chapters, especially chapter 14, chapter 6, chapter 19. Chapter 19F is really like a Thanksgiving paragraph. So I want to bring that into lesson 23, lesson 23. So I'm going to... I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. That's the title of lesson 23. It's always one of my favorite lessons. I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. The idea for today contains the only way out of fear that will succeed. Nothing else will work. Everything else is meaningless. But this way cannot fail. Every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. So every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. It is with your thoughts then that we must work, if your perception of the world is to be changed. If the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. There's no point in lamenting the world. So that's good to know. There's no point in lamenting the world. There's no point in trying to change the world. Okay, that's another good point. So this all saves you years and years and years of frustration, because we've all tried to change the world and to do all that stuff, or lamenting it for sure, and it didn't give us anything. So we can stop doing that. It is incapable of change because it's merely an effect. But there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effects will change automatically.
The world you see is a vengeful world, and everything in it is a symbol of vengeance. Each of your perceptions of external reality is a pictorial representation of your own attack thoughts. One can well ask if this can be called seeing. Is not fantasy a better word for such a process, and hallucination a more appropriate term for the result?
You see the world which you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. This is what salvation means. For where is the world you see when its cause is gone? Vision already holds a replacement for everything you think you see now. Loveliness can light your images and so transfer them that you will love them even though they were made of hate, for you will not be making them alone.
The idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world you see. because its course can be changed. This change requires, first, that the cause be identified and then let go so that it can be replaced. The first two steps in this process require your cooperation. The first two steps would be: you are not trapped in the world you see, and you identify the cause and then let it go so that it can be replaced. Okay. The final one does not. Your images have already been replaced. That's interesting. By taking the first two steps, you will see that this is so. Besides using it throughout the day as the need arises, 5 practice periods are required in applying today's idea.
As you look about you, repeat the idea slowly to yourself first, and then close your eyes and devote about a minute to searching your mind for as many attack thoughts as occur to you. As each one crosses your mind, say, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about which one you have. Hold each attack thought in mind as you say this, and then dismiss that thought and go on to the next.
In the practice periods, be sure to include both your thoughts of attacking and of being attacked. Their effects are actually the same because they are exactly the same. You do not yet recognize this, and you are asked at this time only to treat them as the same in today's practice periods. We are still at the stage of identifying the cause of the world you see. When you finally realize that thoughts of attack and of being attacked are not different, you will be ready to let the cause go. So let's do this, why not? So I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts about, and then almost any thought works. So it really doesn't matter what you bring in. The idea of that you are attacked or that you are attacking something, and attacking is basically also just having a judgment about it or an irritation, or so go ahead and do it. Why not? Wow, that's awesome. Thank you. That's great. So let's go back to once more to the first steps and the second step. So this requires first that the cause be identified and then let go. So what is the cause of thinking these things? It's like, okay, that's happening in my mind. I can let go of it, so it can be replaced. So that's really great to keep in mind. Like these thoughts can be replaced. So and you cannot imagine that has the impact that literally your world starts to disappear when you do that, when you start have that as a practice, when you start to have that as your discipline. So that's really lovely. So essential in the, say, growing into the idea of a teacher of God or miracle healer, or you name whatever you want to call that. So that's essential for us. So we go to because we go to the manual for teachers now to read the part about gentleness. So that's the second part of the book.
426.
426 in the urtext, and in the others we don't know, but it's section 5 from the manual for teachers. What are the characteristics of God's teachers? And then you see by E, probably E too, gentleness. So if you cannot find it, just let me know. So I'm reading this. Harm is impossible. Gentleness. Harm is impossible for God's teachers. They can neither harm nor be harmed. Harm is the outcome of judgment. It is the dishonest act that follows a dishonest thought. It is a verdict of guilt upon a brother and therefore on oneself. It is the end of peace and the denial of learning. It demonstrates the absence of God's curriculum and its replacement by insanity. No teacher of God but must learn, and fairly early in his training, that harmfulness completely obliterates his function from his awareness. It will make him confused, fearful, angry, and suspicious. It will make the Holy Spirit's lesson impossible to learn. Nor can God's teachers be heard at all, except by those who realize that harm can actually achieve nothing. No gain can come from it. Therefore, God's teachers are wholly gentle. They need the strength of gentleness, for it is in that the function of salvation becomes easy. To those who would do harm, it is impossible. To those to whom harm has no meaning, it is merely natural. Gentleness is natural. What choice but this has meaning to the sane, who chooses hell when he perceives a way to heaven? And who would choose the weakness that must come from harm in place of the unfailing, all-encompassing, and limitless strength of gentleness? The might of God's teachers lies in their gentleness, for they have understood their evil thoughts came neither from God's Son nor his Creator. Thus did they join their thoughts with him who is their source, and so their will, which always was his own, is free to be itself. So that's regarding gentleness. So it's like God's teachers are gentle, and so that sounds a bit like, okay, so it means that they don't get angry or something like that, or who knows. It's like, no, in your function as God's teacher, you will be gentle. Otherwise, you're just not fulfilling that function. That's you will not be fulfilling that. So then it has really nothing to do with being a teacher of God. And being a teacher of God is, in general, we read that the other day, is like, who is a teacher of God? Well, anyone who chooses to be one. But see, it doesn't mean anything if you are not following up on the lessons that have occurred or that you went through. So it has always to do not so much with that you call yourself that way, but more in, okay, by their fruits we will know them. So it's about how you implement this, how this, say, transforms you in your awakening. And you don't have to be concerned with the term teacher of God. So you have to be concerned with yourself, with the way that you think, because we saw like the part that is really like under the magnifying glass, even that Jean is using, like our thoughts are under a magnifying glass by doing this Course in Miracles, because you become aware of what you're actually thinking and also what you can do with it, following up on it or not, or letting it wander around or not, or discovering, oh my God, my mind is full of attack thoughts. I'm attacking everything and myself and God and you name it, but actually I'm not doing anything with it. I'm letting it go. I'm not participating. I'm not engaging in it. I just forget about it. I just let go of it. So if you let go of these thoughts, then they don't have an effect anymore, because you let them go and you ask them to be replaced by something that's more constructive for everyone involved. So that's all. See, then you're already in kind of an healing, um, healing construct, because you see that you're the source of your thoughts, and also see the thoughts are okay. It is just you with your attention and awareness are paying attention to these thoughts and engage with them and validate them and value them. That's where the problem lies. See, these thoughts are just the thoughts, and they will be there, and that's fine, but you're not going to do anything with them. See, and that is the basic meditation training, or sitting still and letting your thoughts go training that we come up with all the time, like that we're practicing all the time. So then this gentleness is not just like one of the characteristics only, but also it is, you can only say be that, you can only be gentle if you cannot fake it in that sense. So it is like, if you fake it, something will trigger you and you lose it, so to speak. But if you see that you're by using these ideas that are being shared and by practicing these exercises, you come to the point where you actually see the benefit of what you're doing, and you experience it in your day, because you feel like, oh my God, there's really nothing to attack, and there's really no disturbance in that. Like it's dissolving. That's not a real activity of me anymore. Or sometimes it is, and then I forget about it, but then I pick up the practice, and here we are. Then it's all easy and simple again. See, most of it, and so one of the other characteristics that will come, I think, if I see that right, is patience. Yeah, right. So patience is one of them too. So patience and gentleness are very much related too. Because it is like, in your trust, in fact, in your trust that what is occurring, if you allow that just to basically fall down instead of responding and reacting immediately to it, if you just let it reveal itself what it actually is, instead of responding and reacting to the appearances and ideas that you hold about it, then you see that brings you into basically into the moment again, where you can experience your gentleness, and also you were patient enough to let that happen. So what I'm actually saying with that is, say, all this is based on the practice of practicing the presence, just like Joel said too, like practicing the presence. You're actually continuously allowing yourself to not be fooled by anything, but coming back to this present moment, and letting all your past ideas go, all your comparisons, all your attack thoughts. You just let them continuously go, and you don't do that not only to let them go, but also to open yourself up for the present moment that is right here. Otherwise, you would be very busy if you continuously try to stay in time and trying to, say, sort out all your attack thoughts, all your thoughts, all your this and that. No, you don't have to do that. So that makes the practice actually a lot simpler. And also you will experience a lot more peace. So that's great. So that's pretty unique that we have such an incredible guide that brings us to that now point all the time. Like, however you read this, you actually come back to that. Like, okay, it has only to do with this moment. You're not going to take any past ideas into it. If you don't hold on to past ideas, there's nothing that you can compare with what is occurring now. You cannot compare it. So the idea of judgment or comparison or attack thoughts become, you will not generate them just because of that. So that is So it's good in the process to look at your thoughts and to see how hopeless they are, how they point in different directions, how they actually continuously keep you in conflict, keep your mind in conflict, because otherwise it would have no reason to exist. And then seeing in the next step that by letting that go and entering into this moment, you see that you actually have the possibility to come into the present moment and relax into that. Relaxing into that. All right. So, another part that I would love to share with you is this. So 14b3. So we have a bit of reading today. I don't know. Sometimes it is like that. B3. 14b3. So that is chapter 14 for the blue bookers. Chapter 14. After the introduction, you have guilt and guiltlessness. See 14. The conditions for learning. Okay, I'm going to not compare it, otherwise I will just get lost in that. So B3, it says this. Each one of you has a special part to play in the atonement, but the message given to each to share is always the same. God's Son is guiltless. Each one teaches the message differently and learns it differently, but until he teaches it and learns it, he will suffer the pain of dim awareness that his true function remains unfulfilled in him. So the burden of guilt is heavy, but God would not have you bound by it. His plan for your awakening is as perfect as yours is fallible. You know not what you do, but he who knows is with you. His gentleness is yours, and all the love you share with God he holds in trust for you. He would teach you nothing except how to be happy. Okay, so each one of you has a special part to play in the atonement, but the message given to each to share is always the same. God's Son is guiltless. So guiltlessness, that's also an important part in all this. I'll get to that in a moment. So the burden of guilt is heavy, but God would have you not have you bound by it. His plan for your awakening is as perfect as yours is fallible. You know not what you do, but he who knows is with you. His gentleness is yours, and all the love you share with God he holds in trust for you. He would teach you nothing except how to be happy. Okay, then we continue. I really love this, what we read. Then we continue with 11. The crucifixion had no part in the atonement. Only the resurrection became part of it. That is the symbol of the release from guilt by guiltlessness. Whomever you perceive as guilty, you would crucify. But you restore guiltlessness to whomever you see as guilty. Crucifixion is always the ego's aim. It sees as guilty, and by its condemnation it would kill. The Holy Spirit sees only guiltlessness, and in his gentleness he would release from fear and re-establish the reign of love. The power of love is his gentleness, which is of God and therefore cannot crucify nor suffer crucifixion. The temple you restore becomes your altar, for it was rebuilt through you. And everything you give to God is yours. Thus he creates, and thus must you restore. See, I love to hear this. It's like, here's the source of gentleness is not, it's like it's coming from your experience of totality, your experience of wholeness. So the lesson that we read in 23 was really like giving up attack thoughts. You suddenly can escape the world you see. Because when you start to do that, you come into an openness to the totality of who you are in the present moment, but it's like, if you experience your direct communication, why would you attack anything? And when you give up your attack thoughts and see the world, say, as you know it, disappear, and see something that's completely lovable, why the whole need or the whole idea of attack disappears. So that's what I love about this. It's like, see, it all comes together for us by, say, these different inputs or different angles in which this is being presented, but it's all pointing in the same direction. And that is the beauty of it. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So it's always about releasing. It's always about not attacking, but giving up, letting go, creating space for something else, and having all that what you gave away have that be replaced by something that is, say, really establishing your happiness. See, and you cannot be happy without experiencing the connectedness to everything that is. One exception held apart from that, you would just lose it, if you think that there's something that's apart from it. But in say, your splintered human mind, so to speak, if you use your thoughts as a guide, then there's always something to attack. There's always an exception, and there will always be something that doesn't belong to it. You start to compare, you start to analyze, you start to do all the things that you're accustomed to do. Just another, again, to confirm that the wholeness is not yours yet. So this is the real invitation behind all of this, to come back into relax, opening up, seeing that in your communication with everything that is, there's no need to attack. No, there's only recovery. There's only revitalization. There's only love. There's only happiness. There's stillness. There's gentleness. You literally come in touch with the source of gentleness. See, and it's really like, you know what that is. You know what gentleness is, and you know when you experience it. And that you become so tolerant. That was the one of you last week. It's like tolerance. You become so tolerant for everything that's occurring. If you are feeling well, if you are feeling happy, you become very tolerant about what's going on. So if that is not the case, then you know that something is really wrong, and you should stop right there. Otherwise, you're going to make a mess again. It's like this. It's like, this is how simple that is. It's incredibly simple. You know the difference between feeling well and happy, and when you feel that you literally want to attack everything. You know the difference. So now you also know where to go for it in order for it to be undone. And of course you knew this, but it's like, to see that can come no good from any of that by attacking, really giving up the hope of that something good might come out of your attacking. is a great step forward in this. I love that. So there's one more read. Oh, so D6. D6, we have to do that too. D6. And then I have one more. The relinquishment of attack. This is just a continuation, basically. So D4. We'll start with D4. So this is why you must teach only one lesson. If you are to be conflict-free yourselves, you must learn only from the Holy Spirit and teach only by Him. You are only love, but when you denied this, you made what you are something you must learn. Okay, so this is a really key sentence. You are only love, but when you denied this, you made what you are something you must learn. So this is the phase that we're in now. We have to learn something because we denied what we are. See, like we know the difference between being completely loving or having a tendency to attack. You know that feels different. So there's still two possibilities for you. So it flip-flops from one to the other during the day or not. Maybe not. Maybe you're in total bliss and in love all the time. That's wonderful. But in case you just glitch off, so to speak, and come into the denial of the love that you are, then this is something that you have to learn. So we said before that the message of the crucifixion was to teach only love, because that is what you are. This is the one lesson which is perfectly unified, because it is the only lesson which is one. And only by teaching it can you learn it. Okay, so here's another paragraph for you, D5. As you teach, so will you learn. If that is true, and it is true indeed, you must never forget that what you teach is teaching you. What you project, you believe. The only real safety lies in projecting only the Holy Spirit. Because as you see His gentleness in others, your own mind perceives itself as totally harmless. Once it can accept this fully, it does not see the need to protect itself. The protection of God then dawns upon it, assuring it is perfectly safe forever. See, I love this sentence. So you see His gentleness in others. If you see His gentleness in others, your own mind perceives itself as totally harmless. See, and this is like, then the circle is closed again. It's like, okay, that's really how that is. So in your perception, instead of looking for differences, instead of comparing, instead of analyzing, so your new focus in perception should become this. Is like, look for His gentleness. To whoever you are looking, look for His gentleness. And make that your focal point, like make that your attention. See His gentleness everywhere. And wait, like be patient until you see it. No matter who is showing up on the scene, no matter in what situation you are. So if you have patience enough to let that happen, you will be surprised how quickly that goes and how it is going to be revealed to you. In recognizing the gentleness of your brother, you're actually recognizing the total harmlessness of your mind. That's literally what it says here. So it actually means what it says. It actually is like this. So that's the great thing. And you know actually this. Like if you feel good about if you feel love, if you feel that you're extending and completely tolerant and say receptive to the situation that you're entering in, then you know that you're almost like protected. You feel like, yeah, I've nothing to lose. I'm so happy to be here and to see what I see and to connect with what I see. There's literally nothing that frightens me in any of this. So this is really this is what you know too as an experience for sure. So it's like, allow yourself that gentleness to come to you, and put your focus literally on gentleness in the other, gentleness in yourself. Like, oh, look at how lovely did I do that. So if that becomes your attention point, so to speak, then also that changes everything that you think about yourself, but also think about others. So that's so great how beautiful this comes together. All right, so I promised one more. So this is 19F that I want to bring you to. 19F, chapter 19, 19F. And when I was reading it the other day, I wrote with it like Thanksgiving with. So this is one of the greatest Thanksgiving things. Which is perfect in the way that we're going right now. Okay, so I'll start with F7. From 7 to 9, I'll read this because it's really lovely. If you sent forth only the messengers the Holy Spirit gave you, wanting no messages but theirs, you will see fear no more. The world will be transformed before your sight, cleansed of guilt and softly brushed with beauty. The world contains no fear that you laid not upon it, and none you cannot ask love's messengers to remove from it and see it still. The Holy Spirit has given you His messengers to send each other and return to each with what love sees. They have been given to replace the hungry dogs of fear you sent instead. And they go forth to signify the end of fear. Okay, F8. Here we go. Love, too, would set a feast before you, on a table clothed with a spotless cloth. On a table covered with a spotless cloth, set in a quiet garden where no sound but singing and a softly joyous whispering is ever heard. This is a feast by which honors your holy relationship, and at which everyone is welcomed as an honored guest. And in a holy instant, grace is set by everyone together as they join in gentleness before the table of communion. And I will join you there as long ago I promised and promise still. For in your new relationship am I made welcome. For where I am made welcome, there I am. I am made welcome in the state of grace, which means you have at least forgiven me, for I became the symbol of your sin, and so I had to die instead of you. To the ego, sin means death, and so atonement is achieved through murder in the eyes of the ego. Salvation is looked upon as a way by which the Son of God was killed instead of you. Yet would I offer you my body, you whom I love, knowing its littleness? Or would I teach that bodies cannot keep us apart? Mine was of no greater value than yours. No better means for the communication of salvation, but not its source. Okay, so repeating this beautiful sentence, or this beautiful part once more. Love too would set a feast before you, on a table covered with a spotless cloth, set in a garden where no sound but singing and a softly joyous whispering is ever heard. This is a feast which honors your holy relationship, and at which everyone is welcomed as an honored guest. And in a holy instant grace is said by everyone together, and they join in gentleness before the table of communion. And I will join you there, as I long ago promised, and promise still. For in your new relationship am I made welcome, and where I am made welcome, there I am. So here we are.
Yeah.
Amen. So welcome at the table. And it's a spotless cloth, and it's very, beautiful. So this is that's really beautiful how this all comes together, this lesson that we did, what we read, and now this too. It's you start to feel what gentleness is. You start to want to be there. It becomes highly attractive to stay in that and to make contact with it. So this is if you want to do something today, just give this a moment to contemplate gentleness with an idea of the connectedness with your brother, that you're not differentiating, that you're not looking for differences any longer, but allow yourself the experiment of seeing gentleness in everyone that you meet, taking time to look, maybe even stare until you see it. Whatever it takes, you want to have that be revealed to you, what that means. And the same would be to look at yourself the same way, because I love to include myself into this always too, because you can still have the most beautiful ideas about everyone, but if you're still attacking yourself, it's not going to do any good either. So thank you for listening to this. I think it's a great chapter for this very specific day. I have such an incredible Thanksgiving Day feeling. It's unbelievable. I don't know where it comes from, but it's really great. So I got some real Thanksgiving songs coming up too in the Vespers. You might enjoy it or not. Who knows?